How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? We just heard some fascinating thoughts from Hal Lindsey, the greatest author, probably, but the most popular author in the world today. That's not probably true. The figures prove it. Nobody sold more books than him in the last 20 years, and his name is Hal Lindsey. His latest books, by the way, are The Everlasting Hatred, The Roots of Jihad, and Faith for Its Final Hour. The Roots of Jihad and Faith's Final Hour. Could you explain that to me, Hal?
Well, I wrote the book about the roots of jihad to show the true nature of Islam. I'm very concerned about the government of our country right now because they believe that Islam is basically a peaceful and a peace-seeking religion. It's not. You look at history, you look at the Quran, and you see that it is a religion that believes in conquest by the sword. It believes that everything outside of the rule of Islam is the region of war.
So in other words, if Islam believes in hate and violence for all infidels, and anybody who doesn't believe in it, does that mean the terrorism that we're seeing now coming from the Islam polices throughout the world, that it's inevitable that it will continue?
Yeah, I believe that Bible prophecy indicates, it talks about the Muslims as, it talks about Israel miraculously returned in the last days, become a nation in the last days, which happened in 1948. And it talks about all the surrounding nations, that would be all the nations that surround Israel. And it speaks of them as the ones that would be implacable enemies of Israel. And Jeremiah even uses the term that he would punish them for their everlasting hatred of the sons of Isaac and Ishmael against the sons of Isaac.
Now, I see that you believe this because you believe in the presence and the significance of Israel in terms of the originality of the Old Testament and what it's contributed to the New Testament, and how Israel is the father of all the religion that basically the Christians practice today. But you feel this way. If you feel this way, why is it that Christians in general have persecuted Jews throughout history if they feel that they owe this tribute to the Jews?
You know, a terrible thing happened back in the early 4th century, Jackie, and that is, it was at a time, Jerome was, the ancient church father Jerome, was one of the reasons for this. They started saying that you cannot take Bible prophecy literally, and they started allegorizing all Bible prophecy. And it wasn't until after the so-called Reformation under Luther that there began to be a revolution in Bible interpretation. First, they interpreted the message about salvation literally, but then, finally, they got to interpreting Bible prophecy literally near the end of the 18th century. And that is when there began to be a movement that said that you have to interpret all of these predictions literally, because that's the only way that it makes sense. They always have been fulfilled literally. And Christians who believe in interpreting Bible prophecy literally are the ones that seek to defend the Jews. Those who interpret it allegorically try to make the church take the place of Israel, and they try to make the covenants that were unconditionally given to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and his descendants. They try to take those covenants and promises over and apply them to the church. But there's no way you can do that if you take these things literally.
But let me ask you a question about Islam. I want to get back to the question of what do you think is going to be the fate of the terrorists and the fate of America and Iraq? Is this covered in any way in Bible prophecy about what's going to be our fate with reference to the battles we're suffering from with Islam today?
Specifically, it does not, but in general, it definitely says that Islam is going to be a veritable force in the last days, and it will be a force that will be in league with Russia, which will be a real trouble spot. And the thing that ignites this war and causes Russia to throw in with the Muslims is their dispute over Jerusalem. In Zechariah, written 2,550 years ago, the prophet Zechariah said that Jerusalem would become like a cup intoxication to all the surrounding nations, meaning the Muslim nations, and that they would go to war over who owns Jerusalem, and that this is what is going to drag all the nations of the world into this conflict. So the Muslims are a much more dominant force than I used to realize. I didn't even realize this when I talked to you 20 years ago.
Wow. But let me ask you a question. This is very important to me. To me, it's a very urgent question about why is it that most people, oh, I don't know about most, but a great percentage of people would say you can't predict the future, and there's no way that God or the Bible could predict the future because people are ultimately a product of free will. And how does the Bible know how people are going to behave or what their attitude is going to be in any given time over periods of years or centuries? And how could they, if people are free to do as they please, are we saying in effect that God controls our behavior and we're not free to do as we please? But if we are free as we please, how can we predict what people are going to do and what the ultimate direction of this world is going to take?
Well, you have to put two of the attributes of God together to answer that. First, God is eternal. There is no time with him. Second, God is omniscient. He knows all things. So therefore, he gives us the ability to choose as we please, but he already knows how we're going to choose. He doesn't make us choose that way, but he knows how we're going to choose, because time is a creation of God. It doesn't affect him. He's above time. He knows how we're going to act and what we're going to do.
Boy, oh boy, this is very interesting. We're going to go to a break now, and we have so many more questions and so many callers, and we'll be right back.